Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us on another Friday where we meet once a month to chat about housing co-ops in Chicago specifically. My name is Ray, and I will be talking to you today about the organization of a co-op. A lot of people ask me about what does it take to organize a co-op, and today I just wanted to have a conversation as to what I've learned either from other co-ops, from different institutions that have worked with organizations like the Resurrection Project to kind of bring a deeper understanding of co-op structures. And I am here today to show you what I have been able to find along the way. Now, with that said, I do have to let you know that I am not a member of a co-op and I have never put a co-op together. However, I am interested in working with people that are interested in running co-ops. I live in the back of the Yards neighborhood and we definitely need some co-op housing here. So anybody that's tuning in that would be interested in getting to chat and possibly exploring working together and seeing how far we can go when it comes to setting up a co-op. After this chat, please let me know. I will drop my contact information in the chat. Additionally, if you have any questions at any time, feel free to drop them in that chat. I can see them and I can respond to them live. This week is going to be really exciting because next week, I don't know if you guys knew, but next week on 4th of July, it is International Co-op Day. So I hope that if you are a member of co-op, you're celebrating. I know that Shy Commons is having a picnic in the South Side where different co-ops are going to come together. I will be there with bringing a dish because it is a potluck. So if you want information on that, just let me know. I'll be happy to connect you. But in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and pull up my presentation right here and just bear with me. And here we go. There we are. So once again, thank you again so much for tuning in to my monthly chat with you via Facebook Live or on YouTube as you might be tuning in. My name is Ray. I am the Housing Co-op Program Manager at Full Circle Homes with the Resurrection Project. I am happy to be here with you today. And as you know me, for the last 2 years, I've been having monthly conversations about co-oping, what it is, how does it work, what does it mean to be a member, and how do you purchase a share in a co-op. So by now, I'm hoping that I have a lot of returning folks. These series are put in place so that they generate general interest, so that people become aware that this is an option, especially now with the current market being as high as it is. It can be inaccessible to many of us, and renting is not getting any cheaper. So housing co-opting is something that actually makes a lot of sense. And I would love to have that in my neighborhood and back at the yards. We need these. We need group ownership. It makes sense. Before we get started any further, I do ask you to join me in registering for this website. This is really, really important for me, not only because it makes me connect to you, but it also kind of gives the city a nice picture of the work that we are doing at the Resurrection Project to elevate and support the strength of housing cooperatives in our community. So take 1 second to go ahead and click on the QR link, or you could just scan it with your phone. You are not going to be getting spam from me. This is just for me, just so that I can get contact with you if you do want me to contact you, and then also to show that there's enough interest in the city so that the city continues to provide service and support in the development of housing co-ops throughout the city. And once again, if you have any questions about anything that we are going to be talking about today, just let me know. Drop them in the chat. I'll be more than happy to respond to them as we go along. The more questions, the happier I am. So take this as a challenge from me to you. All right. So now that we have been having conversations about what a housing co-op is, I always like to start off with a very simple definition as to what a housing co-op is. Housing co-op is a group of people that come together to establish a corporation that registers itself as a housing cooperative. People are co-owners of the co-op membership, and that also means that they are exclusively living in one of the units in that property. Now, it is different because unlike conventional home purchasing, co-op ownership means that you're buying a share. The share is there basically as your contract of occupation. That means that you have the right to be a member of the co-op, which means that you have a say in the decision-making process and the management of the co-op as a group. And then you also have the exclusive use of one of the units in that co-op. Co-ops are very important because they open doors where others have closed. That means that if you are a family who is looking to purchase a single family home, but unfortunately there is no means to be able to make that purchase, or simply there's lack of inventory that kind of falls within our means, the only resource typically would be renting, but renting unfortunately has skyrocketed in pricing. So it is now looking very similar that renting and home ownership are kind of hand in hand when it comes to pricing. But housing co-op is something in the middle. It has a lot of benefits because you are co-owner of this corporation. The corporation owns the co-op property where people live, and you get to call the shots. You and the rest of the co-op members govern it democratically. So that means that everybody has representation, everybody has a voice, everybody has a choice as well as to how co-ops are run. But a lot of people just continue to ask me, well, what is a co-op? How do I organize that? Well, I'm not going to tell you everything about that because, like I said, I haven't put one together, but I am working on that with a couple of my neighbors and interesting folks. If you are interested in joining my group, please let me know. But let's just get to it, right? So co-op housing, co-op organizing is the process by which a group of organizers come together to acquire, manage housing collectively that will share ownership and decisions makings. That means that this project is aimed to give access to affordable housing. It provides shared ownership, and it's ruled and governed by collective decision making. So that means that everybody has equity, everybody has equality, which is really fantastic. It's like being your own homeowner, but having a team to be an owner with too. People ask me, well, if I'm buying into the co-op, what part of the building is mine? None of it. You are buying the co-op membership. So that means that it lets you be a part of that co-op group and that you are going to be exclusively living there for as long as you are able to, with lots of benefits. Additionally, you live in community. Everybody else is looking out for each other because it is in the best interest of the co-op groups to work together to ensure that the sustainability and the success of the co-op grows. In Chicago, there are more than 60 housing co-ops, and they've been around for a really long time. The earliest ones were founded as early as the late 1800s, so it's been more than 100 years, and they have thrived. Typically, we find them in communities where there is a high density of a population and a low density of housing, right? You can see that most of these co-ops in a very snippet map along the lakefront, you see that most of the co-ops are actually located along the lakefront, all the way up from Morse and all the way down to Lake Shore and South Shore. These co-ops could be very different. They could be single-family homes, or they could be 4-unit homes, I'm sorry, or they can be up to 200 units. It all depends. It is all due to the rise and need of the housing structure. So no two co-ops are going to be the same. But if you take a look at the map, you can see how they're pretty much all over. And if you haven't had a chance to check out one of these co-ops, I can guarantee you that you probably walked by one and you've never noticed it. And the reason why is because they don't advertise themselves as a co-op. They're just homes for people like you and me. When people live in co-ops, when people create co-ops, there is a lot of empowerment because typically it provides more control and participation. So that means that you have ownership, but also the rest of the people have ownership too, and we're looking out for each other. It's a greater stability and affordability. So that means that you are guaranteeing that there is no displacement. You're also guaranteeing that there is no situations or circumstances where you're not living in your own terms, or you don't have to deal with abusive or irresponsive landlords. There's also a sense of community. You know, people got together and they organize co-ops because they believe in helping each other and the power that it brings. Now, this type of housing emerges when a group of people organizes to create the housing security. Like I said in the previous map, you can see that along the lakefront, there is a lot of properties that are established as co-ops. And the reason being is because cost of living in those communities is way too high, even though it wasn't always like that. Typically, what happens is that in the urban plan and the urban development of any major city, impoverished communities or low income communities tend to come up, as some people like to say it. And when they come up, more people move in with more access to funds. And so the people that are been there for a really long time have to leave because they can no longer afford it. This is displacement that is happening in all of our communities. We've seen it all. I, have been displaced from 3 different communities that I lived in Chicago. I am currently living in a neighborhood where we do see a lot of need for housing co-ops because, again, there's many families looking for safe, dignified housing, very little affordability, and then also very little access to rentals. So the reason why these are pursued is because they want to make sure that they establish long-term stability, that you know that you're going to have peace of mind knowing that you can live there for a year without having to all of a sudden get a knock on your door and say, hey, guess what? Your rent is going to go up $300. Or, hey, guess what? In 6 months, we're going to need you to leave the apartment. It will make you sure that you want to stay there for as long as you want. And why? Because it has a great financial impact that works on your benefit. Also, it gives you a lot of control along with the rest of the members that are part of the co-op to say and dictate how the co-op operates. So it's like your own landlord, but a team. It's community leadership. You're not only living there, excuse me, you're not only living there, but you're also taking roles that are important to make sure that the cooperative is functioning properly and it stays strong. And then it also combats displacement. A lot of times when we see these co-ops come up is because people are being pushed out of their neighborhoods, either because they're being priced out or aggressive development that is private. And by private, I mean it's not for them. And so people come together to buy a property where they individually couldn't afford to buy a property and they become co-owners. And so when they become co-owners, they can all afford a part or share of that property to live in. And they get to stay in the community that they grew up in, the community that they work at, the community their schools are at or their jobs are at, or simply where they choose to be without having to be pushed away because of finances. Housing co-ops are supportive to the residents through leadership and ensures democracy and equitable representation. It is self-governed, so that means that there is no third party that is going to tell you what to do with your co-op. It's basically co-ownership, so that means that you own your membership to the co-op along with the rest of the members. What does that membership get you? It gives you exclusive access to live in one of these units for as long as you're able to make your terms. Also, you share the property's ownership along with the rest of the members. And so you also maintain it and take care of it and take on other leaderships, just like a homeowner would, but with the benefit that it's not just one person, it's various people. And, the more hands, the less work. It's also collective decision making. You are calling the shots. You and the co-op group decide what every aspect of the co-op, what the purchases are, what the internal processes are, what the legal terms are, the house rules, what can and can be done. Who is this co-op serving? What is this co-op about? All of that is decided through votes. And the people that vote are the people that are members of the co-op. It's also self-managed. There's no third party. There's no property manager. There's no, outside entity that is going to tell you what to do or how to do things in your co-op. It all stays amongst themselves. And then it's community. It's you and your neighbors working together on the behalf of everybody, which is really important. This is really great because, I recently was speaking with a client and she told me, oh, you know what, I'm a little nervous, but I've never been a part of a co-op. I'm ready to retire. However, I was a treasurer for a really long time for Chicago Public Schools. And I said, you know what? Hey, bring that to the table and say, hey, I have treasury experience. Maybe you could be the one that's going to help support taking care of those financial records. And I heard back from her, and she said, you know what, that was a great advice, because once I told them what I was able to do, they connected me right away. They voted me in, and now I am so happy because I'm bringing that structure and my knowledge to the co-op group. So it's really great. And then also, again, part of the community. You're going to hear community a lot in this presentation. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. All right. So before we get into the bits and pieces about co-ops, I kind of wanted to talk to you a little bit about the different types of co-ops and who they are for and what do they focus on. So we have 3 popular models in Chicago, and they're called the zero equity, limited equity, and market equity. For those of you who are not familiar, equity is the appraisal of your property. It's your investment growth. Basically, the way that it works in conventional home ownership is that you buy a property for a certain amount, and maybe 10, 20 years, it could double or triple according to the market. That is a benefit. That is gains for the owner. However, with housing cooperatives, it works a little bit different, and it also kind of the same. And I'll tell you why. I'm going to start from the bottom. I want to talk a little bit about market equity. Market equity basically is a model in co-oping where it's very similar to condos, where you can sell your share. Remember, you don't buy the property; you buy a share, kind of like a business venture, into the co-op. And so when you buy a market equity share, you could purchase it at market price and sell it for whatever amount you want to sell it. There is no cap. There is no restriction as to who you want to sell it. It's very much like a condo. However, that is focused. That model of co-oping, market equity, it is focused on maximizing profit or making sure that your investment grows. Then at the very top, we have zero equity. And zero equity basically means that members only pay their membership. And then after that, they pay their rent and their house, their monthly dues. And then when they leave, they just get their membership money back. They don't actually get an opportunity to create equity. But that type of model is focused on maximizing affordability to the extreme. So that means that by having no equity accrued into your shares, that guarantees that it's going to be the most affordable way of living in these type of properties. But my personal favorite one is limited equity, which is right in the middle. Limited equity is resale value, and it's restricted by the co-op rules. It's basically what it does is that by restricting it, it keeps the housing affordable. And I'll give you a really good example. Let's say that there's 2 buildings. Both buildings have 8 apartments in each building. They were both bought at the same time. One of them was bought in the 80s for $450,000. The other one was bought for $450,000 in the 80s as well. However, the second group became a housing co-op. It registered itself as a housing co-op and operates as a housing co-op, whereas the first building actually operates as a foreign market apartment housing. Years have passed, and as you know, property taxes go up and the appraisal of these properties grow as well. So now it's been 20 years, and now this $400,000 building that is for apartments is now almost $1 million in value. But the limited equity co-op is still at $400,000. And why is that a good thing? It's a good thing because when the market around us is going higher and higher, it becomes less affordable for people. And so that means that when the building is at that appraised value, that means that the property taxes are going to be higher and maintaining the building is going to be higher cost. So that means that typically what we see is that the people that absorb that increase is the renters. So the more the property value goes up, the more rent is going to go up. And so that could be really, really difficult for people to be able to stay in place. With limited equity, what it does is that it basically guarantees that the property is going to stay valued at the same amount, $400,000 for the years to come. A lot of people ask, well, isn't that bad for your investment? Not really, because this model for limited equity is to make sure that they are maximizing affordability on the long run. So that means that you are going to be able to tap into your equity, but it's going to be really, really minimal. It's going to be maybe a 1 to 3% growth annually. So it's not going to be something that you're going to retire of. But Whereas the rest of the properties around you are going up in value, the rent is going up, the housing costs are increasing because the limited equity in the co-op stays the same, the property value stays the same, the housing cost stays the same, it stays stable. And not only that, but you are able to kind of capture some of those funds that you have invested into your share in all of these three because you are actually able to resell your share either to a third party that's been vetted by the board of directors, the members of the co-op. And as long as the co-op is okay to sell to this third person, you can get your investment back. So it's kind of like renting to yourself. Let's say that I lived there for 20 years. I've been paying the same amount for 20 years. I paid my share off, and now I'm only paying my monthly dues for gas, light, electricity, and mine happens to include Wi-Fi. So those monthly bills do not come back to me, but my share amount does come back to me, even though there is exit fees. But in limited equity compared to market rate equity, there is a limit of to how much I can sell this property for. And the reason being is because if I start charging more and more, that means that other people are going to charge more and more as well. And it becomes inaccessible for people that would want to purchase and join that co-op that I'm exiting. So limited equity is the one that makes the most sense. I personally feel that that is best for your investment. And most of the time when I talk to people about living in co-ops, they're like, yeah, I'm never leaving. This is great. And that is exactly the purpose of co-oping, is to making sure that people stay in place and they're happy where they're living and they're living in good conditions and they have a say as to what is happening to their housing. When we talk about the co-op structure, we're not talking about the co-op's property. We're talking about the structure, either the legal, the governmental, the restrictions, the rules, and we're also talking about the financials, right? As I said earlier, the co-op is managed and led by its members. So that means that the members are the brains and muscles of the organism that is the co-op, right? They run, they execute orders, they take action and very different things. And it's done in different ways, right? So you have a group of elected officials or leaders that are in the co-op that is selected by the co-op members. It could be president, vice president, treasurer, the board of directors. Those folks are residents, but there's also an absentee board. It could be people that the co-op members have voted to represent them in their co-op, but they don't necessarily have to live there. It is all entirely up to how the co-op wants to go about it. There's also rules and bylaws. Now, the rules and bylaws are really important because they kind of define what the co-op is about. It talks about who it serves. It talks about what it's about. It talks about how it's run and structured. It talks a little bit about what the bylaws are, which talk about what does it mean for you to be a shareholder in that co-op? What are some of the procedures? What does it look like to sell a property? What does it look like to purchase into a property? What happens if there is violations that need to be addressed? What's the voting system? And of course, it has to be legally registered as a corporation. The corporation exists as a group. The corporation property does not lay under somebody's name. It's always under the group, which provides a lot of security and kind of mitigates the risk of foreclosure. And then, of course, the most important thing, and yes, this is very important, is financial solvency. So that means that the co-op has to have a structure where it can sustain its operating costs, but also be able to have a financial structure that allows them to create backup reserves, operational budgets, and then also thinking ahead, financially planning for the future. Now, when I think about financially planning for the future, it's like, oh, well, our house only runs $20,000 a year to operate. What do we want to do that? Well, I mean, if you're doing a great job as a co-op, maybe you want to expand and get another building and become 2 building co-ops. And, it all depends on the leadership of the members and what you want to do. Remember, if you have questions, let me know. They're in the chat box. It's nice and empty right now. I wish this was a co-op, so there would be at least 6 people living in this chat box right now. Now, I want to talk to you a little bit about the characteristics of the co-op, and I just briefly mentioned it previously. It is its own legal entity, so that means that the co-op has to be declared legal entity in the state and in the city. So that means that there is governance and there's legal procedures that the co-op has to do. One of those things is obviously establishing their laws and their bylaws, and then also being able to have that legal representation. So it is its own legal entity. Like I said, it doesn't fall under somebody's name. It can execute legal contracts that the law abides and recognizes as legal. It owns assets. In this case, the co-op entity owns the property that they operate from, and it can incur debt, right? If you do not have a strong financial, armature, then that could lead to debt. It is also legally registered. It's not just something that people put it together and they're like, okay, we're co-op, right? It is established through bylaws and state incorporation, right? There's a lot of benefits to this because you can get some tax brackets for being a housing cooperative. You might be able to tap into some subsidies that the city might have available. And so all these different things definitely make an impact, especially when your co-op is registered legally. It is independent of its members, and I said this, it is independent of its members because it exists as a separate form to the members. So that means that the co-op does not live through the members, it lives with the members. So that means that it exists even if I leave as a member. If I leave that co-op, the co-op will still exist. It'll still be around because it's an entity. It is not an individual. So if I were to leave a co-op, that doesn't mean the co-op is going to fall apart. It's going to stay there and somebody else will take my place, because who doesn't want to live in a co-op? It's super affordable. It's super secure. It's awesome. And then it's independent of it's governed by specific laws. So one of the great things about co-ops is that every co-op kind of does things differently, right? But they define their own laws and procedures. So according to their co-op, according to corporate law or housing regulations, the co-op puts together their structure. If you take a look at one co-op and you take another co-op and you bring them together, they are going to be very different, but they are going to have some of these components in place that are going to kind of make them officially recognized as co-ops by law. Now, for planning is a really difficult thing because it is not an easy project. It is not something that you can get done in 3 months. First, it takes a lot of commitment. You have to have the right people with the right vision to be able to take on this work. It requires a lot of learning, a lot of research, a lot of resources, a lot of organizing, a lot of time, a lot of patience, a lot of knowledge, and a lot of help. It is difficult, but it is doable. And the payout is amazing because then you have safe, guaranteed, thriving home ownership for you and the rest of the members that want to be a part of this group. But where do you start? You start with a vision and a founding group. You're defining what this co-op is going to be about, and who are the folks that are going to help you build this co-op, right? Is it a group of artists that live in your community? Is it young people? Is it people of a third age, seniors? Is it single parents? Is it returning citizens co-op? That is all up to you. Like, who is your group? Like, who do you want to make this for? Then there's also the feasibility aspect. Yes, we want to build a 300 unit co-op in back of the yards, my neighborhood. Why not? Do we have the money? Do we have the tools that we need? Do we have the income? Do we have the context? Do we know enough about what's around this neighborhood that building a 300 unit co-op makes sense where the neighborhood is at now? Maybe not, but that is something that we need to make sure that as we plan ahead, that we're considering this. Can we do this? Does it make sense? Then the model. Choose what type of co-op you want and the type of governance that you want as well, right? How do you want to do this? Like, do you want a zero equity co-op because you just want to make sure that people have the cheapest rent available in the neighborhood? Or do you want people to have an opportunity to stay there for a long time because the rent is going to stay consistent throughout the years? Or do you want to make it market rate co-op, which is kind of like a condo, right? Where people can come in and pay and sell at whatever price they want, and run the risk of, unbalancing the co-op equity and equality. All up to you. There is no wrong model. be it zero market or limited equity. All those models work and they work for different people. So it's up to you and your working group to decide what kind of co-op model you want to do. Then the structure. How do you want the structure to be assigned? Like who's going to take care of what? Who is in charge of what? Who is going to be helping out with what? And what about the basic rules? How are we going to be working together to get this done? Then the finances. We got to talk about the finances. So finances is very important because you do need money. You need money to be able to buy that property. And then you need money to be able to operate that property. And that's where we come in. And as share owners, right? We are buying a portion of the cost of the property. We are paying our monthly dues to benefit the group because we have running water, we have city services, we have property taxes that are paid, we are have heat and gas and electricity throughout the building. It provides us safety and security. We also want to make sure that we are tapping into subsidies and resources, right? The city of Chicago has been doing a wonderful job at advocating and pushing forward these initiatives and empowering different co-op initiatives. And so there's subsidies that are coming out soon, and they could be subsidies for procuring a property, right? Let's say that a capital stack, and if you don't know what a capital stack is, basically is everybody brings a lot of money to the table. And we combine that money and say, hey, we have $900,000 for a building. However, we do need another $900,000. You can tap into organizations like CCLF in the city who could probably help you and guide you through finding resources that could probably help you financially to pay that gap. But it does take a lot of work and research. It's not easy. No one's just going to come at your door and say, hey, here's $900,000 for your co-op. It does require a lot of groundwork. And then ownership. Identify and secure the property, right? What kind of building you want to live in? Now we know that this is a limited equity co-op, but what kind of building do we need? There's 8 of us, and I am getting old, and I don't do very well with stairs, so I would need something that's a little bit more accommodating to my motor skills. The rest of the co-op members have children, and they want to be close to schools, right? Other members want to have live in a high-rise building, and other members do not want to live in a high-rise building. So how do you compromise? How do you identify what the best co-op property is for you? And that basically is by doing a lot of research and thinking it out and planning it out. This is not something that is easy to do. This finding the building is one of the most complicated things for procurement. Why? Because either there's not a lot of lending or financing available for co-ops to procure buildings. They would either want you to bring the share money to cover the whole payment, or they're weary about issuing these type of loans. But it can be done, and we've seen it. There's 60 plus co-ops in the city of Chicago who has been able to do it, and they're successful. And there's way more co-ops that are going to come that are going to be able to learn from them so they can do the same. And then the legalization, you got to keep it official, right? We are working as a co-op. The city knows us as a co-op. The state knows us as a co-op. And so we have the operational capacity to exist as such. And then the implementation. Are we recruiting? Are we selling? Are we vetting? When are we going to launch? When are we going to open our doors? Is there a campaign to promote, to spread the word? Like, what's going on, right? So these are some of the components for organizing a co-op. Now, how do you get started? Simple. Ask other co-ops. That is the easiest way. They have so much knowledge in understanding, like, how do you start a co-op? Well, how do you started your co-op, right? What have you learned? What can you teach us? Remember, it's all about a sense of communities, and for the most part, co-ops do an amazing job at staying connected and sharing and helping other groups interested to establish their own co-ops. There's so much knowledge out there, but you have to connect to them. You have to do your little research too, and you have to be patient and resilient. People tell me, "Oh, I can build a co-op in a year." Sure. If your team has the capacity and that scope, by all means, bring it on. However, it does take a couple of years, but it could change because now the city of Chicago is aware of these components of putting together a co-op. Now there's references to legal documents. We know what those documents that need to be in place. We know how to register ourselves as a co-op. We know what bylaws are. We know what financial deck is. We know what the legalization aspects are. So that should make it a little bit more attainable. It doesn't make it any easier, but it makes it more attainable. Any questions? Feel free to drop them in the chat. And that's basically it. I don't want to say, hey, let's go ahead and start a co-op together, right? Because it is a huge commitment. However, I do want to share that currently I am working with a couple of different people who have shown interest in co-oping. They said, hey, I kind of want to learn more. I kind of want to see how I can explore this idea for my family or my group of friends or people in my community. So once a month, I've been kind of hanging out in different coffee shops. Usually I hang out in back of the yards where I live, or I hang out in Pilsen or La Villita, or I can go to Bronzeville or Hyde Park, or pretty much anywhere in the area, just to have some coffee, just so we can get to know each other. I provide resources and say, hey, look, take a look at what the legal aspect of it is. Hey, I know this great person who's working in co-op support. Let's bring them in. And then, hey, this is the knowledge that I have learned from the incubators and the trainers from UHAV in New York. Shout out to them, that have taught me about some of the mechanics of this. But in addition to that, come and talk to me about other co-op interests, right? So if you want to learn more about what a co-op is, you want project support, hey, you're starting a co-op and I need some help, hey, come talk to me. I'll be more than happy to do that and be there for you. My goal is to have a solid group of people that want to explore a co-op in the south side of Chicago. So if you're interested, let me know. You have my contact information there. You could also scan the QR code that is on the screen to go to our resource pages. You're going to find guidebooks. You're going to find FAQs. You're going to find common knowledge and then maps of current co-ops and where they exist, and then also links to awesome resources like the community web. The community web is the place to go to when it comes to shared ownership, and that means community land trust, deed restricted properties, and especially housing cooperatives. And then one more thing that we do at the Resurrection Project is that we are a CDFI organization. We are a community lender organization. So we actually have something called a share loan. The share loan is really great because it is specific to purchasing housing co-ops. For a long time, the banks have not been willing to issue share loans because they consider those a risky transaction, or they don't know enough about those transactions, so they don't issue those. If they do, it's on really high terms that are not really favorable to the borrower. However, us at TRP, because we are committed to supporting housing cooperatives, we have developed this really amazing product. It's called the Advantage Share Loan. And if you stay tuned, I will be talking to you about that in the next month to come, or sooner. The Advantage Share Loan is special because we're the only community organization that offers it. It has great terms. It is very diverse for different borrowers, and you can use it for a couple of things. You can use it to buy a share into a co-op, or you could also use it for a share improvement. So if you want to remodel, if you want to do some work done on that too, you can do so. Now, we also manage subsidies from the city of Chicago. There are some subsidies that are going to be specific to shared ownership that will be coming out soon, and very soon, I sure hope. And we are often the distributors of those funds. And once we get to that point, we will be able to kind of share. I will broadcast this out because it provides down payment assistance for people that want to purchase a co-op share. And then there's also way more. So again, let's connect, talk to me, use the QR code to make an appointment with me, or you could always visit our website that is listed at the bottom. Anybody have any questions at this time? I can go ahead and be quiet for a second so that you guys can type in. I hope that you guys have found this informational. I hope that you guys have learned something new. And if you're interested, like I said, connect with me. I'd be more than happy to listen to you, support you, and get you ready either for your purchase or help you out with your planning of your co-op group. All right. And then once again, thank you so much. It's the 4th of July next week, but again, I am super excited because it is also International Housing Co-op Day. So I hope you get a chance to celebrate. Go talk to somebody who lives in the co-op. Say, hey, I want to know more about you. How is your quality of life? I want to know how things run here. But co-op housing is fair housing. Co-op housing is dignified housing, and it's healthy housing. So it's for everybody. It's for you, for me, for everybody. So let's make this happen. Let's make housing co-ops a common thing, and let's fight displacement. Let's fight gentrification. Let's fight having no access to dignified and healthy housing for all of us. Thank you so much, and I will talk to you very soon. Have a great afternoon, everyone.